I worked with a director recently who was absolutely terrified he was going to lose his home. His business had gone under, he was having to deal with an insolvency practitioner, and he was told that because of an overdrawn director's loan, he could be made personally bankrupt. In his head, that meant one thing: the family home was gone. Now here is the reality. Most directors don't know this. Yes, overdrawn director's loan accounts are one of the biggest risks in liquidation for you personally, but in lots of times they can often be negotiated and settled, and that is exactly what we did for this chap. We stepped in, we spoke with the insolvency practitioner, and we structured a realistic settlement that worked for everyone. He kept his house, he avoided bankruptcy, and he walked away with peace of mind. Something he never thought was possible when he first called us. So listen, let's dive into this. Right, this chap was a fairly big earner, okay? He was a one-man band, if you will. Contractor, at a massive daily rate of pay. Now, he'd racked up over a few years £250,000 worth of corporation tax. In addition, he also owed £60,000 worth of VAT. Here is the big problem, okay? He had a 250 grand overdrawn director's loan account. And what's worse, he had a shed load of equity in his family home. Right, now let's dive into this. How on earth did he end up with a £250,000 overdrawn loan account? Well, it's really simple. He took too much money out of the company. His financial planning was very poor. He didn't have a grip on numbers. He thought that the money in his business account was there for him to spend. And he built that up over 4 or 5 years, which obviously when you've got large overdrawn director's loan accounts and you're not paying them back, you incur something called S455 tax, which is a tax. It's actually added onto your corporation tax. So nobody had really got hold of this guy and said, listen, you shouldn't be doing that. In fact, that's probably not true because I spoke to his accountant. His accountant had warned him about this. He hadn't really taken much notice, but he didn't understand what was going to happen now the business is insolvent. Now, listen, if you're a director with an overdrawn loan account, I'm not here to judge you. I'm really not. In fact, I would say 95% of the cases we deal with here at Director First, directors have overdrawn loan accounts. And it's really because what will happen for the normal director, we're told to take our salary, say £1,000 a month, take the rest as dividends to be that's the most tax efficient way to take money out of your company in the UK today. But it's only when you're making profit. Now, most directors, when they sort of end up in insolvency, it may be the last year they've become insolvent, okay? And at the end of the year, their accountant's gone, you need to speak to somebody in insolvency. And then they call us up and we go, right, what's the state of play? Let's have a look at a balance sheet. Can we have a chat with your accountant? Okay, your director's loan account wasn't overdrawn in the last 7 accounts, but that's not everything. Let's have a look at how you've taken your money since your last set of accounts. And I just asked them this: how much are you taking a month? 4 grand a month. Okay, are you on payroll? Yeah, for a grand of it. So 3 grand a month you're taking, and they go, yeah, take it as a dividend. Okay, well, when did you stop paying HMRC? Well, I couldn't pay my last corporation tax, and I've not been paying the VAT properly for a year. I say, right, this is your problem. You can't take a dividend if your company is insolvent. And if you've not paid your HMRC corporation tax or your VAT, you are insolvent, and you was insolvent when you stopped paying it. Therefore, when an insolvency practitioner gets appointed, they're going to look at all of those 3 grand a month that you've taken since your last set of accounts, and they're going to go, excuse me, sir, I know you thought you didn't have an overdrawn loan account in your last set of accounts, but actually those dividends that you've taken, we're going to classify them as illegal dividends, and we're actually going to change them into an overdrawn loan account. Therefore, in that example, you owe the company 36 grand. How are you going to pay it back? Okay. Now, this guy owed a lot more, £250,000, and he had lots of equity in his house, and he was convinced he was going to be made bankrupt and he was going to lose his home, okay? And that's where we stepped in. So, By the way, if anything I've said has resonated with you so far or caused you a bit of concern, it's not to alarm you. There are options. Go into the description, click on the link. One of my team will call you today, okay? Let's have a look at what happened. Right. So he's rang us with the fear of God in him. And we've gone, right, slow down. We need to look at this. First of all, we had to look at was his overdrawn loan account bang on? Was it 250,000? And it was. He had a bookkeeper. Eventually, didn't take much notice of the bookkeeper, but he had up-to-date management accounts. We asked him, have you got any expenses that you've incurred for the business that we could actually take off legitimately from your overdrawn loan account? And the answer was no. So we've got to look at it, and he goes, Chris, I'm going to lose my house. My missus and my kids live in there. And he hadn't told his missus either. And I says, that might not be the solution. It might not be how it plays out. And he couldn't understand why I was saying this. And I said, listen, let's call him John. I says, John, for an insolvency practitioner to make you bankrupt, it's got to be in the creditor's interests, okay? And really, they've got to do a bankruptcy to get more money out of you to go back to creditors than they would get from a settlement, okay? I says, let's have a look at this. His house was worth 450 grand. His mortgage, he had equity in there of 262,000 quid, right? So in his head, I'm going to lose this. But in a bankruptcy scenario, it wouldn't sell for 450 grand. Let's do it at 90% of the value of forced sale. So it'd sell for 405, okay? And once you took off the estate agent's fees, which is a percent, and the solicitor's fees, 3 grand plus VAT, the available equity was going to be 253,000 quid. And in his head, he's going, well, that's what I owe. They're going to take all that, I'm going to lose my house. That is not the truth. Because half of it was his wife's. And his wife wasn't involved in the business. So an insolvency practitioner can't touch the wife's equity. So his equity is 126 grand. Okay, that's a scary thought though, isn't it? You know, I'm going to have to find 126 grand to repay this overdrawn loan account. Right. Well, let's have a look at what the costs of making John bankrupt would be. Well, there'd be a petitioning cost of 2 grand plus VAT. There will be the official receiver's costs of 7,200. Now, the trustee in bankruptcy charges 15% of realisations, and it can be more, okay? But let's be conservative. The trustee could charge nearly 23 grand. And let's say John buried his head in the sand and the solicitor's chasing him for years. Well, there could be 25 grand of legal costs. So, to make John bankrupt, it's going to cost nearly 60 grand, okay? So therefore, he's probably got about 68 grand left in the pot. Now, let me tell you, most insolvency practitioners don't want the risk of making someone bankrupt. Not all, you know, I don't work with loads and loads and loads, but as a guiding principle, their job is to try and get as much money out of you for the benefit of creditors cheaply as possible. Now, a bankruptcy and forcing someone out of their home can take years and years. And the risk for the insolvency practitioner is your position can change drastically in years. You could rack up more personal debt. So actually, the available equity wouldn't be 68 grand. It might take another 80 grand's worth of credit card debt. Therefore, the insolvency practitioner has took on these legal costs of 25 grand and they've not got anything at the end, because at the end of it, John has racked up another £70,000 worth of personal debt. So, this wasn't even everything, by the way. In addition to all this, John had 50k of debt. And that was a combination of self-assessment he hadn't paid, credit cards and loans. So if the insolvency practitioner had made him bankrupt, they would have got a portion of this £68,000, okay? Because remember, everyone else would have got a nibble of what was left in a bankruptcy. So, did he lose his Did he lose his house? No, he didn't. What was the deal that he got done? We helped him negotiate a deal where he paid 18,000 quid back. And he saved his house. And he learnt some very, very harsh lessons. And that is the benefit of having someone like us in your corner, helping you, educate you about what could happen, but what's unlikely to happen. And we sort of educated him with what he could do and how he could position his offer. So this got dealt with. By the way, he also had to pay £5,000 to go into liquidation, right? But all of this got dealt with for £5,000 for liquidation, and the 18 grand was his settlement as full and final. It got accepted. Now everyone's different, okay? And I'm not here to judge. Listen, he shouldn't have had an overdrawn loan account. He made some as large as that, but he made some really poor decisions, okay? But our focus is helping you, help you understand what your options are, what you can do and what you can't do. Now this guy told me I saved his life, okay? That's how important what we do here. Now, if you want some information, get in touch with us. If you've got a problem with an overdrawn loan account and you're considering going into insolvency, you need to speak to us quickly. Now, if you want more information, this next playlist is going to be about overdrawn loan accounts. And if you're still watching, you've probably got one or you like funny looking bold chaps. Go and click on the link before, the link there, and go and find out more about overdrawn loan accounts. Thanks for your time, Chris Worden. God bless.